Welcome back to the deep dive, where we cut through the complexity to give you the clearest insights. Today, we're diving headfirst into, well, the very engine of our economy. Think about these everyday observations. When an unexpected cold snap grips Florida, why does the price of orange juice shoot up across the country?
Yeah, you see that happen.
Or, come summer, as New England warms, why do Caribbean hotel rooms suddenly get cheaper?
hmm
And here's one more. When tensions flare in the Middle East, gasoline prices here in the United States jump, while the price of a used Cadillac might actually fall. What do all these seemingly disconnected events have in common, you ask? They're all perfect, real-world illustrations of supply and demand, two concepts economists practically live by, and for very good reason.
Absolutely, they're fundamental.
They're not just theoretical constructs. They are the fundamental, often invisible forces that dictate what gets made, how much of it, and at what price. Our mission in this deep dive into Chapter 4 of Mankiw's Principles of Microeconomics is to equip you with a sharper lens to see how buyers and sellers truly interact, how prices, well, magically appear, and how these powerful dynamics allocate our economy's scarce resources.
Exactly.
We're going to unpack these ideas, connecting the dots to give you a foundational understanding that's both clear and hopefully deeply insightful.
It's truly fascinating how these everyday examples instantly reveal those unseen market dynamics. Before we zero in on the behaviors of buyers and sellers, let's maybe briefly anchor ourselves with what we mean by a market itself.
Good idea.
At its core, a market is simply any group of buyers and sellers of a particular good or service. Pretty straightforward. The buyers collectively drive demand, and the sellers collectively define supply. And these aren't just abstract concepts, you know. Markets come in all shapes and sizes. You have the highly organized ones like the global exchanges for agricultural commodities such as wheat or corn.
Right, like the trading pits you sometimes see.
Exactly. Buyers and sellers might meet at specific times and locations, often with an auctioneer sort of orchestrating the process, making sure sales happen, and a clear price emerges. But then there are less structured markets, like for ice cream in a small town. Sellers are scattered, perhaps offering slightly different flavors, and buyers choose from various parlors. There's no central auctioneer shouting prices.
Much more casual.
Right. Yet these individuals are very much connected by the invisible threads of competition, with buyers seeking the best deal and sellers vying for their attention. Even in that less formal setting, it's a vibrant, functioning market.
That distinction between organized and less organized markets is so helpful, and it naturally leads us to the idea of competition.
Mhm.
In most markets, like our ice cream example, the competition is fierce. You, as a buyer, know you have choices, and a seller knows their strawberry scoop isn't that different from the shop down the street.
They can't just charge anything they want.
Exactly. This means no single buyer can demand a dramatically lower price, and no single seller can hike prices without losing customers. The price and quantity sold emerge from this collective dance. Economists call this a competitive market, one with so many buyers and sellers that no single participant can meaningfully influence the market price. The gold standard, the sort of theoretical ideal, is a perfectly competitive market. Here you have two defining characteristics. First, the goods offered are identical. Think a bushel of wheat, indistinguishable from the next.
Homogeneous goods.
Right. Second, both buyers and sellers are so numerous that no individual holds any pricing power. They are all price takers, meaning they simply accept the price the market dictates.
They have to take the market prices given.
The wheat market is a classic illustration. Thousands of farmers, millions of consumers, and no single entity can set the price. Of course, not every market is perfectly competitive. A monopoly, for instance, has only one seller, effectively setting the price, like maybe your local utility company.
A totally different structure.
But for our deep dive today, focusing on competitive markets gives us the strongest foundation for understanding the forces at play.
Now, let's turn our attention to the buyers, because their behavior forms the bedrock of demand. When we talk about quantity demanded, we're referring to the specific amount of a good or service that buyers are both willing and able to purchase.
Willing and able, both important.
Both are key. And while many things influence that willingness, the price of the good itself is often the most immediate and powerful factor. This brings us to the law of demand, a fundamental principle. Other things being equal.
That's the crucial phrase.
It is. Other things being equal, when the price of a good rises, the quantity demanded falls, and conversely, when the price falls, the quantity demanded rises. It's an inverse relationship. You can almost visualize this with what we call a demand schedule, basically just a table that maps out this inverse relationship.
Yeah.
Imagine Catherine and her ice cream cones. At $0, she might grab, say, 12 cones a month. But if the price climbed to $3, maybe she only buys 6. Push it up to $6, and she might buy none at all.
Makes sense.
Plotting these price-quantity pairs, with price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal, gives us the demand curve. Because of the law of demand, this curve consistently slopes downward, illustrating how a lower price always leads to a greater quantity demanded, assuming, nothing else changes.
So Catherine's individual demand curve is one piece of the puzzle, but to understand the market as a whole, we need to aggregate all these individual buying decisions into market demand.
Right, we scale it up.
This is simply the sum of all individual demands at each possible price. Picture Catherine's choices and, say, Nicholas's choices. If at $4, Catherine wants 4 cones and Nicholas wants 3, the total market demand at that price is 7 cones.
Simple addition, horizontally.
Graphically, it's like horizontally summing up every individual demand curve to get that overarching market demand curve. This collective curve is what we typically analyze when we want to understand broader market movements.
That's precisely right. And while a change in the goods price moves us along that existing demand curve,
Along the curve,
the entire curve itself can shift if something other than price alters the quantity demanded in every given price. Imagine a sudden, widespread discovery that ice cream dramatically boosts cognitive function.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Indeed. At any price point, people would want more ice cream, shifting the entire demand curve to the right. That's an increase in demand. Conversely, a new health craze that demonizes sugar might shift the curve to the left, representing a decrease in demand.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because these shifts are driven by forces we see playing out in our lives all the time. First up, income.
Yes, income.
If your income rises, you generally demand more of most goods. These are called normal goods. Ice cream usually fits here. But some goods are actually inferior goods, where demand falls when your income rises.
Kind of counterintuitive at first.
It is. Think bus rides. If you get a big raise, you might ditch the bus for a car or a cab, so demand for bus rides would go down. It's all about how your purchasing power changes your choices. Then we have the prices of related goods. These come in 2 key types. Substitutes are goods used in place of each other.
Like Coke and Pepsi.
Exactly. If the price of frozen yogurt drops, you might grab more froyo and consequently less ice cream. So a fall in the price of a substitute reduces demand for the original good. Hot dogs and hamburgers are another classic pair. On the flip side are complements, goods typically consumed together. If hot fudge becomes cheaper, you might buy more hot fudge and more ice cream to go with it.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Perfect. Here, a fall in the price of a complement boosts demand for the related good. Gasoline and automobiles fit this perfectly. Our personal tastes and preferences are also huge drivers. If a celebrity endorses a product or a trend emerges, tastes can shift demand.
Though economists don't usually try to explain why tastes change.
Right, they just observe the effect. Expectations are powerful too. Expecting a higher income next month might loosen your purse strings today, or anticipating a sale on ice cream might make you postpone your purchase.
Future expectations affecting today's choices.
And finally, the sheer number of buyers in a market directly influences overall demand. More people wanting ice cream means higher market demand. Pretty logical.
The critical insight here, the distinction we must truly grasp, is that a change in the price of a good leads to a movement along the existing demand curve.
Movement along.
But when any of these other factors, income, prices of related goods, tastes, expectations, or the number of buyers changes, it causes the entire demand curve to shift.
A shift of the whole curve.
Exactly. This is a common point of analytical confusion, but absolutely vital for understanding market dynamics.
We can see this in action with a compelling real-world example: the efforts to reduce smoking. Policymakers have essentially 2 levers. One is to try and shift the demand curve for cigarettes to the left.
Change people's underlying desire.
Right. This means public service announcements, graphic health warnings on packaging, advertising bans, all aimed at reducing the quantity demanded at any given price. The other approach is to move along the existing demand curve by making cigarettes more expensive, usually through taxes.
Use the price mechanism.
When taxes push up prices, smokers tend to reduce their consumption, moving up that demand curve to a point of higher price and lower quantity. Studies show a 10% price increase typically reduces quantity demanded by about 4%, and even more significantly for teenagers, around 12%.
Interesting difference there.
And intriguingly, some research suggests tobacco and marijuana might be complements, meaning that if cigarette prices fall, marijuana use might actually increase. It highlights the complex web of related goods.
Now let's flip to the other side of the market. The sellers and understanding supply. Just as we defined for demand, quantity supplied is the amount that sellers are willing and able to sell.
Willing and able again.
That's right. And mirroring demand, the price of the good plays a uniquely important role here. This leads us to the law of supply. Other things being equal.
There it is again.
Always important. Other things being equal, when the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied of that good also rises, and when the price falls, the quantity supplied falls as well. It's a direct, positive relationship this time.
So higher price, more supply.
Imagine our ice cream vendor, Ben, and his supply schedule. At very low prices, say below $2, he might not sell any ice cream as it's just not profitable.
Not worth his time.
Exactly. But as the price per cone increases to, say, $3, he might be willing to supply 2 cones. At $4, he'll supply 3, and so on. Plotting these price-quantity-supply pairs with price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal gives us the supply curve.
And this one slopes.
Upward. This curve always slopes upward, illustrating that a higher price provides a greater incentive for sellers, leading to a greater quantity supplied.
And just like with demand, we don't just look at Ben's individual supply. We sum up what all sellers are willing to supply at each price point to get the market supply.
Aggregate again.
So, if Ben supplies 3 cones at $4 and Jerry supplies 4 cones at the same price, the total market supply at $4 is 7 cones. We're essentially summing those individual supply curves horizontally to get the overall market supply curve.
Exactly.
Showing how the total quantity offered for sale changes with price, assuming all other factors affecting production remain constant.
Crucially, just as with demand, factors other than the goods price can cause the entire supply curve to shift.
Okay, what kind of factors?
For example, if the cost of sugar, a key input for ice cream, suddenly drops, making ice cream production cheaper and more profitable, sellers would be willing to produce more at every given price. This would be an increase in supply, shifting the entire curve to the right.
More supply, curve shifts right.
Conversely, if a new regulation makes ice cream production more expensive, the supply curve would shift to the left, representing a decrease in supply.
Less supply, curve shifts left. Got it. So, what else besides prices whispering in Ben's ear, influencing how much ice cream he's willing to sell? Let's break down these key determinants that shift the supply curve. First, input prices.
Big one.
These are the costs of everything that goes into making the good cream, sugar, labor, the electricity for the freezer. If any of these input costs rise, production becomes less profitable, so firms supply less, shifting the supply curve to the left.
Makes production tougher.
Then there's technology. An innovation, like a more efficient ice cream machine, can drastically reduce production costs. This makes selling more profitable and increases supply, pushing the curve to the right.
Technology often boosts supply.
Sellers' expectations also play a role. If Ben anticipates ice cream prices will soar next month, he might hold back some current supply, hoping to sell it later for a higher profit.
Trying to time the market.
And finally, the number of sellers in the market directly impacts overall market supply. More ice cream parlors in town means a greater total supply of ice cream.
This brings us back to that vital distinction. A change in the price of the good causes a movement along the supply curve.
Along the curve.
Whereas changes in input prices, technology, expectations, or the number of sellers cause the entire supply curve to shift.
The whole curve moves.
Keeping these two types of changes clear in your mind is absolutely foundational to understanding how markets respond to events. Now let's bring these two powerful forces together, supply and demand. When we superimpose the market supply curve and market demand curve on the same graph.
Where they cross.
Exactly. They intersect at one unique point. This point is called the market's equilibrium. The price at this intersection is the equilibrium price, and the quantity is the equilibrium quantity. At this magical price, the quantity of the good that buyers are willing and able to purchase perfectly matches the quantity that sellers are willing and able to sell.
The balancing point.
It's often referred to as the market clearing price, because at this point, there's no leftover product and no frustrated buyers waiting in line. Everyone who wants to buy at that price can, and every seller who wants to sell at that price does.
What's truly remarkable is how markets, left to their own devices, naturally gravitate towards this equilibrium. It's like an economic self-correcting mechanism.
The market finds its balance.
Imagine the market price for ice cream is above the equilibrium price, say at $5 a cone. At this higher price, sellers would want to supply a lot, perhaps 10 cones, but buyers would only demand a few, maybe 4 cones. This creates a surplus or excess supply.
Too much ice cream.
Ben has freezers full of unsold ice cream. What's he going to do? He'll cut prices. As prices fall, two things happen. Quantity demanded goes up, and quantity supplied goes down. These are movements along the curves, relentlessly pushing the price down until it hits equilibrium. Conversely, what if the price is below equilibrium, say $3 a cone? Now, buyers would be clamoring for ice cream, demanding 10 cones, but sellers might only be willing to supply a few, 4 cones. This creates a shortage, or excess demand.
Not enough to go around.
Buyers are frustrated waiting in long lines. Ben, seeing the eager customers, realizes he can raise his prices. As prices rise, quantity demanded falls and quantity supplied increases. Again, these movements along the curves push the price up until it settles at equilibrium.
Fascinating adjustment process.
This pervasive self-adjusting process is what we call the law of supply and demand. The price of any good will adjust to balance the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded.
Understanding these adjustments is crucial for predicting market behavior. Mankiw provides a systematic three-step approach to analyze changes in equilibrium.
Okay, what's the method?
First, identify whether the event shifts the supply curve, the demand curve, or both. Second, determine the direction of the shift right for an increase, left for a decrease. Finally, use that conceptual supply and demand diagram in your mind to visualize how the shift alter the equilibrium price and quantity.
A clear plan.
This disciplined approach eliminates guesswork.
Let's apply that framework. Scenario 1. A heat wave hits during summer, impacting the ice cream market. Step 1. Hot weather primarily changes people's tastes for ice cream, impacting the demand curve. Supply isn't directly affected.
Right, affects buyers.
Step 2. People want more ice cream in a heat wave, so the demand curve shifts to the right, an increase in demand. Step 3. Now, visualize it. At the original price, this sudden surge in demand creates a shortage.
Too many buyers, not enough cones.
To resolve this, the equilibrium price for ice cream will rise, and crucially, the equilibrium quantity sold will also rise. It's important to remember here that while the quantity supplied of ice cream increased because of the higher price, a movement along the supply curve, the supply itself, meaning the position of the curve, did not change.
That's a key distinction. Supply didn't shift, quantity supplied did. Excellent point on that distinction. For our second example, imagine a hurricane devastates sugarcane crops, driving up the price of sugar, a core ingredient for ice cream.
Okay, input price shock.
Step 1. The higher price of sugar, an input, directly impacts the supply curve of ice cream. Consumer desire for ice cream isn't directly altered by the cost of sugar, so demand remains unchanged.
Affects the seller's costs.
Step 2. Higher input costs make ice cream production less profitable, so the supply curve shifts to the left, a decrease in supply. Step 3. At the initial price, this reduction in supply creates a shortage of ice cream.
Again, a shortage, but from a different cause.
Right. This shortage pushes the equilibrium price up and the equilibrium quantity down. Here, the quantity demanded decreased due to the price increase, but the demand curve itself didn't shift.
And for the grand finale? What if both events happen simultaneously? A scorching summer and a hurricane that destroys the sugarcane crop.
Double whammy.
Step 1. Both curves will shift. Hot weather shifts demand, and the sugar price increase shifts supply. Step 2. Demand shifts right, increase, and supply shifts left, decrease. Step 3. If you visualize both shifts happening, the equilibrium price will definitely rise.
Because both shifts push the price up.
Exactly. Both an increase in demand and a decrease in supply push prices upward. However, the effect on the equilibrium quantity is ambiguous. It could rise, fall, or stay exactly the same, depending entirely on which shift the increase in demand or the decrease in supply is more substantial.
So the quantity outcome is uncertain without knowing the magnitude of the shifts.
It really shows the true power and occasional uncertainty when these forces collide.
Indeed, it underscores why careful analysis of each determinant is so vital. Mankiw includes a helpful table summarizing the predicted outcomes for these various combinations of supply and demand shifts. It's a powerful tool for quickly predicting how events will alter equilibrium price and quantity, and I highly recommend using it to, test your understanding.
Good resource to check out.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, it's clear that the supply and demand model isn't just theory. It's an incredibly potent lens for understanding virtually every market around us.
It really explains a lot.
The fundamental takeaway is this. In a market economy, prices aren't random. They are the elegant yet powerful signals that guide decisions, allocate our economy's scarce resources, and ensure that supply and demand are constantly striving for balance for every good and service.
Absolutely. Think about how prices subtly ration scarce resources. Prime beachfront land, for example, is inherently limited.
They aren't making any more of it.
Right. Its price adjusts until the quantity of people willing and able to buy perfectly matches the available supply, ensuring it's allocated to those who value it most and can afford the premium. Prices also act as an unseen conductor, determining what gets produced and by whom. No central planner mandates how many farmers we need. Instead, the prices of food and the wages of farm workers adjust to create the incentives for enough people to enter and stay in agriculture.
The market sorts it out.
This, at its heart, is Adam Smith's famous invisible hand at work, with the price system acting as the very baton that conducts the economic orchestra. This inherent efficiency of prices often sparks fascinating debates, like the one surrounding price gouging after natural disasters.
Ah, yes. Always controversial.
When a hurricane hits, demand for essentials like water and batteries skyrockets, while local supply often plummets. Economists often argue that allowing prices to rise, while unpopular, is economically beneficial.
From a pure efficiency standpoint.
Higher prices, they suggest, prevent panic buying, ensure the limited goods are allocated to those who truly need and can pay for them, and crucially, incentivize external suppliers to rush new stock into the affected area. It's the economic answer, even if it feels, well, counterintuitive. However, a different viewpoint emphasizes social values, arguing that such price increases are deeply unfair, exploit vulnerability, and can permanently damage a business's reputation within a community that expects solidarity during a crisis, not profiteering.
The fairness argument versus the efficiency argument.
This tension between pure economic efficiency and deeply held social values is a complex and recurring issue, as seen in expert polls where a significant majority of economists still disagree with laws against price gouging, despite strong public sentiment.
This complex interplay leads us to a provocative thought for you to consider. Given how powerfully prices allocate resources and guide decisions, and recognizing this tension between cold economic efficiency and deeply held social values, what societal roles or goods, if any, do you believe should be entirely exempt from these market forces, and why?
And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of supply and demand. We've journeyed from the basic structure of a market to the nuanced forces that shape individual and collective behaviors, and how it all converges to set prices and allocate those crucial resources.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
It's foundational stuff.
Indeed. Understanding these core market forces provides such a crucial lens for interpreting so many economic events around us. It's truly a foundational concept that will serve you incredibly well in deciphering the economic world.
We hope this exploration has sparked some valuable aha moments and given you a far clearer picture of these powerful economic principles. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Mankiw's Chapter 4.
Thank you for engaging with the material. We truly appreciate you spending your time with us, seeking to be better informed.